Welcome to Cloud Dialogues. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
And we're back for Cloud Dialogues, episode
Yeah, not too
33.
bad.
Hey, Georgia, how you
Not too
doing?
bad. Public holiday, yes.
Public holiday?
Having a nice rest day in the UK. I think it's the whole of the UK? Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Is it
I
summer
don't think it's
holiday?
quite summer
Yeah,
yet.
summer.
Getting there.
Close enough. It's been a while since we've done an episode with no guests. So we'll go through the news and we'll talk about MCPs because that's something that I've been looking at, and
Lots of talk
MCPs
about
have been in the news a
MCP.
bit lately. That's right. First news article. So I thought this was interesting because Databricks, a couple of weeks ago, Databricks acquired Neon, who is a Postgres as a service.
We like Neon, don't we?
Database as a service. And
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Neon because I was doing some work on it. A little side project. I like it because it's got a nice free tier. So I
Love that free tier.
I didn't have to pay much to try some stuff out. That's right. Whereas the regular cloud providers, while they have a low sort of usage, it's not really serverless, although that's changing a little bit. But Neon is a really serverless Postgres. So if you're not using it, you don't pay. And in fact, I'm not paying at all because I was using the free tier. So Databricks.
I mean, not many
how much did they
databases
pay
are
for it?
serverless, like not properly serverless, right?
Oh no, there's only a
All lies.
handful of them. But yeah, I know they pretend. Does it have the price here? Can't see how much it was. Anyway, I think Neon have had issues with uptime the last few days as well, but I don't know, I'm sure they'll sort that out. But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. We've had some AI news. OpenAI announced Codex, which is basically a software engineering agent that works behind the scenes and work on many tasks in parallel.
Have you tried
so
this
you
yet,
can do
Matt?
a bunch of stuff and it works in the background.
Interested to see how
No.
comparatively to Cursor,
No.
which is obviously powered by Anthropic.
Yeah. Well, this one's actually doesn't have it's like a background thing. So you can give it a whole bunch of stuff and it can go away and, I don't know, work on it without you looking, which is kind of scary because I like to keep an eye on my AI
Absolutely.
just to make sure they're doing the right thing. So yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, I think it would be a little bit nervous for me. I don't know, maybe I'll try.
Maybe
it
we'll
at some
just
point,
create
but
a new AW to do that. Let's not use our own
nothing in
tenant
it.
to out.
That's right. Apparently it can work on many tasks in parallel, but there's a lot of freaks out there, and I will call them freaks because I saw this guy who had a picture of like he had 4 screens and he was basically putting Claude to
Wow.
work in all 4 screens and just prodding occasionally and just check like 4 different projects. I'm like, oops, I lost my earphone. I don't know, that's too... I can
That's
barely
surely the
concentrate on one
definition
thing,
of
let alone
vibe
4
coding.
things. So
Four different instances of
that's very
Claude
much
going.
vibe
But I feel
coding.
like this is where it gets a little bit scary. And I know you and I were talking a few weeks ago about someone that you met that had vibe coded their whole startup. I'm just not really sure that this is responsible. I also think that
Yeah.
anyone who's like investing and this is the thing, as a customer, I think we need to be really careful, right? Like who is actually, if you're buying digital products off others, who built them and with what credentials did they build them? Because
Yeah, I know.
I really have reservations about this. And I would like to think that I'm quite liberal.
Yeah. That's right. You've got to keep an eye on it and you've still got to do the planning and not just let it vibe its way to delivery because it'll be, I guess, not necessarily maintenance because you can just get the LLM to maintain it.
Absolutely. That's my biggest concern with this. And, I feel like this is the same as remember that time that someone stole someone's Stack Overflow and it ended up on like written on the UX of, was it like Nissan or something like
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
this is
It
how
was
we end
like a
up
car
there.
thing.
This
Yeah, it
is
was a
how we
car
end up there.
thing. So
Or,
obviously it was
you know,
copied.
someone, and this is like,
Exactly.
I was having this conversation with one of my colleagues the other day. Someone put something malicious on GitHub and then and a bot scrapes it or an agent scrapes it and
Yes.
uploads it to production. It's like, well,
Yeah, I know. And then
that this is why I think you need to know what you're doing. And if you're, I really would recommend, this is where we're in a crazy world. We're in a world full of cowboys now. Any digital products that you're planning to consume,
that's right.
who was the credentials of the person that built that?
Yeah. I mean, there's
Gone
always
to another
cowboys,
level.
but
We're like, this
you
is
need
it.
to
It's
know
like
your stuff.
cowboys on ecstasy. I saw this thing that was like vibe coding on ecstasy, and it was like, it was cool. And I was like, that it was like a demonstration or something. It was like prototyping on steroids or something. And I was like, gosh, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, God.
No, it
It's
was
on my
like a
list to go
legitimate
real this year.
tutorial. Yes.
Oh, really? Jeez.
No, I think we'll leave that one.
We won't put that link in the show notes. Okay, so we're talking about... Oh, okay. The next one is Google released a bunch of stuff. I think they
Oh,
productionized their Gemini 2.5 model, which has been in test or preview or whatever for a while. And because they had a big developer conference last week, and I think Microsoft's was the week before. And they also released VA3, which is a AI filmmaking tool. Now, I'm not sure what I think about this, because does this mean that people are just going to
and made movies and
dump a
stuff.
bunch of AI, not thought through video movies that, like, people do that for podcasts? I'm like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose, because
Yeah.
podcast is about, conversation. And do you really want to listen to fake people talking
Yeah, it's
about things
interesting.
with, I don't
Hey,
know, AI
been going on for a
opinions?
while.
So
There's that
I don't
tool that
know.
you can
Anyway,
dump any
maybe
document
it's
into and it
maybe
will turn it into a podcast. Like
yeah,
one of my colleagues sent me one, they gave it their
yeah,
CV and it
exactly,
did a
yeah.
podcast about their CV. And I was like, that's so funny. But yeah, no, I honestly, I think that I would, and maybe I'm being optimistic, and I really would love people's opinions on this, is that I think that humans still want to hear from other humans. Like, I think that AI has a place, right? It has a place for like sorting through information. But if I want to
Yeah,
go
it
and
helps.
like when I'm still reading books, right? Like I bought new books the other week. I bought some, mainly I read biographies, like, or like, is it an autobiography? Yeah, mainly I read nonfiction.
Non-fiction, yeah. Oh, auto is when the person,
Yeah, so
autobiography is when
I
the
love
person explains
autobiographies. I love
themselves.
anything that's
Autobiography.
like about Hollywood in the 60s and 70s because I just find it fascinating. But I
Oh, yeah.
can't, I like reading books that have been written by, like, I like to, because for me, whatever I'm reading, it's partly about the person that wrote it, right? And I think that's the same about the podcast, is like, it's partly about, I listen to a podcast because I like the person that, like, I listen to Cloud Realities because I rate Rob and Dave and Esme. You know what I mean? Like, I don't listen to it to like hear information. Like I do, but by virtue of them, right? So it's one of those
Yeah,
things where I think I would like to think that as a human race, as as a society, we still want to hear from each other as opposed to just hearing from computers.
yeah. So I'm hoping I mean, maybe it's about,
Yeah.
again, assisting the person with the film, the editing,
Well,
the
I mean, when do we
effects,
get to a
and
point where, like,
all that sort of stuff.
for example, like if I'm Margot Robbie in my dreams, I'm such a big fan.
In your dreams.
So honestly, I'm like,
She's awesome.
I, yeah, absolutely.
Fangirl.
When do I just get to like allow someone to use my image?
Or
Well,
maybe
I
for
mean,
those
if they're
free
paying
trials.
you,
But you
right?
don't
Like,
want them
when
to
do
use
I
your
allow
name too.
them to just pay me and then I'm not actually having to
If they're
do
paying
anything, which
you,
would be
yeah,
great
that's
because
the
she's
key
just had a
thing.
baby, right? Enjoy your life. You're just raising your child and having a quiet life, and you can just be in all
Enjoy your
these
life.
movies that you've never actually done anything.
Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, but then
Maybe
like,
that'll
when do we get a
happen. I
point where
mean,
we
that's
actually
probably
don't
where we go,
like?
actually.
Because obviously there's kind of new famous people coming out, like, there's like a budding Hollywood or whatever, or a bit more globalized than that now. Like, when do we get
Yeah,
to a point where we don't need that anymore because we just want to see all the
actors,
old
yeah.
faces? We just want to see like a 30-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio or Brad Pitt or whoever it might be.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's interesting. It's an interesting world, isn't it? And you see on Instagram all the time, like videos of people that aren't real, right?
Yeah. I mean, they do always do ones of Elon
Oh,
and
there's some weird
Trump
stuff out there,
and
but there's also some stuff
everyone,
that
but
seems
there's
normal,
also
and
two
then you
people.
you look at it again and you're like, actually, that's not right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll
And I
agree.
think we're in a dangerous point because you can do bad things. Well, not, I wouldn't say bad, but things that aren't optimal. But if you use AI for good, then that's a much better story. I mean, it's like when the LLMs first came out, it like became really popular like a couple
Mm.
of years ago. Everyone was writing blog posts with them, and they're just basically a bunch of crap. And people still do it, but you can identify it. Although maybe it's been becoming harder to identify now, but it's a similar thing now with audio. Well, audio has been kind of like that as well, and now video. So anyway, it'd be interesting to
I
see,
think also, like,
use
I
AI for
think
good.
I'm pretty sure
And
people have accused me of like writing, and I do write posts with AI, but it actually, like, it comes from me, and then I just get it to clean up my thoughts, right? Because everything's just chaos
yeah,
all the
clean it
time.
up.
It's like I
Yeah,
only have so
exactly.
many hours to spend in the day on a podcast, on top of my full-time job,
Yeah,
everything else that I do on the side. This, going to the gym, trying to have friends,
I know
trying to date.
exactly.
All this is like, I only have so many hours in the day. Oh
I
yeah,
know.
also I have chronic fatigue because like it's like everybody's so critical. Everybody always wants to criticize, I feel.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
We try.
But at least we're doing something. So yes. So listeners, we do have another episode, even though we've been a little bit quiet of late. We have the next one is what have we got? Nvidia. One of your links. Cheaper Blackwell chip for China. Oh, this is on that related to the whole tariffs thing. I think. Nvidia launching a new chipset for China at a lower price than its recently restricted H20 model. So I think this is to get around so they've got something for the Chinese market that's not going to
I guess
hit by
the
tariffs.
tariffs sit within certain,
Oh,
like, I guess, design or like requirements, right? So they can't, as I
yes,
understand,
yeah.
they can't sell their like top-notch chips to China anymore. Um, don't know if I
Yeah.
have an opinion about that. I mean, I guess I'm an advocate for free
Oh,
markets. Well, I mean, I
there'll
think we're
probably
just
be
going to be
more
living
of
in this
that as well.
chaos for the next few years.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
yeah. No.
That's one thing that I'm like,
Well,
oh,
our
well,
policy
this is
seems to be
true. And I feel
changing on
like
a
part of
weekly
it will just be
basis.
like doing stuff and then undoing it and being like, yes, look at us. We removed trade barriers. It's like, and people will probably
That's
believe
right.
that.
Oh dear. Yeah. And we got
Yes.
Oracle buying 40 bill. Is that billion? Billion worth of Nvidia chips for OpenAI. Hang on. Oracle buying 40
Well, it
billion
seems
Nvidia
that
chips
Oracle
for
is going to
OpenAI's US
run
data center.
a vast capability of DCs for OpenAI.
Oh,
Yeah, that was interesting because no, well,
interesting.
I feel like we
I
haven't
missed
seen a
that.
whole lot about OpenAI and Oracle. Maybe I missed some things, but yeah, I thought that was interesting. $40 billion on Nvidia high performance chips. I think they're go.
Yeah. So Oracle's leasing the site for 15 years. So yeah, I guess OpenAI don't want another
Exactly. They're
data
not
center.
infrastructure
They just want to use
people,
the things
right?
in
And
the
I
data
think
center.
that's been quite obvious from because they signed something else quite significant recently with a up and coming company They're obviously, what was the other one? It was a company that we didn't know, but they were pre-IPO, I believe. What were they called? CoreWeave at a point. They were called CoreWeave.
Oh,
So
CoolWeave. Yeah.
CoreWeave,
Yep.
I believe, is pre-IPO, but they signed an agreement with OpenAI like a few weeks back. So I guess I would expect that OpenAI is looking for a degree of diversity here, right? Hence the Oracle conversation, but they probably also want some players that can move really fast, like this smaller CoreWeave, which I think was a bit of a, we'd never heard of them. But obviously running DCs with like bulk AI capability is hard, right? We know that. Like existing DCs can't really be retrofitted at this point. So
Yeah. I'm noticing that too, because I was asking for some model access at AWS through Bedrock in Australia, and it took me
really,
like 8 days to get it actioned. Yeah, and like I have like very small limit. I think it was 2 requests per minute, which is I know 1 request per minute, which is
yeah,
literally not enough
right.
to do
Okay,
anything.
that's interesting. I wonder if
So
that is, yeah, a capacity.
it's crazy. So even AWS restricted. I think the new and the other thing is Claude 4 got released last week, and that limit in AWS appears to be higher by default. So I'm not sure what the
I mean,
story
maybe
is
they're
around that,
favoring
but
their own models, right? Because Anthropic is obviously it's part.
yeah,
I think
probably.
Anthropic is
I
now partly
suspect.
owned by Amazon, so they could be favoring their own models. It's interesting.
Yes. What have we got next? Atata
Obviously, we
Consultancy
spoke about the
Services.
M&S breach a few weeks ago. Now,
Ah,
because at
yes.
first we thought it was like
Okay,
a,
so they're doing.
at first we thought it was just a disaster, right? We didn't think it was a cyber breach, but then, they confirmed. Apparently, there's some, well, I mean, Reuters believes that they've been told that it was via TCS that this breach happened. Yeah,
That out.
so obviously they have said that some customers' data was breached. I don't think it was like obviously not credit card details and whatnot, but there was some customer data breached.
Yeah, I mean, personal information or whatever.
It shocks me like people's general reaction to this is like, oh, poor M&S. I'm like, what? Like some of the sentiment online to me is really strange. I'm like, kind of annoyed with them because I'm like, you're putting my data at risk. I'm a customer of M&S. Like, yeah, like, I mean,
Yeah,
they
because
haven't
you're a
told me that my
customer.
data got
Yeah,
breached, so hopefully it didn't. Well, this is
they're
it.
probably
This
still
is they
working
probably
it out.
don't
You've
know
got an
what was
email in like a
breached. This
month.
is the problem, right? Is a lot of the time they don't know what data has
Yeah.
been potentially. Oh God. Yes. All right. What else do we have? Oh yeah,
Gemini.
I feel like
What we got?
this one is similar to that whole conversation around like, is it okay for Amazon to train their models using books? This is another example of it. Is it okay for Meta to use everybody's Instagram posts, Facebook data? Is it okay for them to use that to train models? That's the question here, right?
Hmm. Yeah. So a German consumer rights group wants to stop them. Interesting that's in Germany, right? Because they're all about a lot of privacy and. But if it wasn't
Yeah,
Germany, it'd probably be another country in the
yeah.
EU, I guess.
I mean,
So, and the thing is, do you want to train it with that? Because it's basically everyone who's racist and boomers
this
and,
is so true. Well, I mean, it comes back to what we were
I don't
talking
know
about
if
with
I should
Julia
say
a
that.
few weeks ago, right? Is that AI is a reflection of
I know,
us. And so do
yeah.
we really want
Biases.
AI to be a reflection of Facebook?
Yeah,
I would say that the answer is no. I
definitely
logged off
not.
like 12, 13 years ago and haven't logged on since.
Instagram is
Yeah, well,
not much better. I mean, Instagram, we like to laugh at reels, but there are plenty of, what's the word,
It's
shady sort of posts and
unbelievable.
weirdos that
Like,
do
and just
comments.
people's level
You've
of
seen
like
more.
audacity. It's just unreal. Like the people, remember a couple of weeks ago, where people were saying, well, there was some like commentary around like Pamela Anderson aging, and someone tweeted, and I
Oh,
was
that's
like,
right.
this is
Yes,
bang
yes,
on.
yes.
I would vote for this. Someone tweeted saying, any man that makes a comment about the way that Pamela Anderson looks should have to post a picture of himself so that we can all roast. And I was like, oh man, I would live in that
That's
world.
right. Exactly.
I would vote for that. We need that. Oh,
It's
absolutely.
only fair, right? We've got Microsoft offering rival. I missed this news item. Offering rival AI models from its own data center. Oh, okay, so it's. Do they? I wonder if they. Because it's like. So AWS
Bedrock.
resell through Marketplace a
Yeah.
bunch of different models. Yeah. So this is. I thought they already. I thought
Well,
Microsoft
I
already
think
did,
that
but maybe they
it's
haven't.
like it's the way that it's done is different, but also,
Oh, and XAI. Yeah, and
yeah,
Elon's
I heard I
XAI as
keep,
well.
I know that I said that Mistral was one of them. I keep hearing about them lately. I don't know what there's all this hype around Mistral. I don't know why it's
Yeah,
different
I've heard
to
about them
anything
too.
else, but
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of specialized models and stuff, I guess, so, to do different things. There's too many of them to know. So, I mean, I know of the main ones to an extent. And even then, like GPT's got so many different types of ones. There's expensive and cheap, and working out which one to use for which use case is too hard. So I just use Claude for everything.
mm,
I mean, it's a decent default. So yeah, so that's interesting that Microsoft, and they're partnering with Elon as well to host their model. So I guess it's just more choice for people. So I guess Microsoft being neutral
I
is
mean, they
good,
really have to be, right?
which is
I feel like they have to be.
unusual for them.
There's so much, there's the power in terms of
Yeah,
AI in the market is really diversified, I think, right now. We saw that when um, DeepSeek went live, right? Hemorrhaged, Wall Street just
yeah, that's right.
hemorrhaged because it was like, are my investments actually worth
Yeah,
what, you know, are they worth what they're currently being sold or bought for? Like, are they worth the money that I put into them? And I think that that's a big question.
yeah,
I think we'll continue to see like a degree of disruption, especially in markets for like specific things, like the enterprise market. We're going to see continued disruption for
yeah,
markets for AI models for very specific things. And I think it's good. It's good. Take some power away from the
yeah,
hyperscalers. They have way too much money and way too much power.
yeah. Yeah, and kind of related to that is the breaking news from last week is that Microsoft open sourced GitHub Copilot last week. So that's actually a big deal. I'm not really a fan. I prefer Cursor, but maybe open sourcing GitHub Copilot will improve it. So, and that's also kind of unusual. Well, Microsoft have been open sourcing things for the last 10 years or so, but so it's not a super surprise, but it's interesting that they did that last week at their
Well, I think it's
conference, bit of a
supposed to
conference.
be kind
Actually,
of
one they did before.
similar to what was the one we were talking about like 5 minutes ago? The agent, no. Code. I think
Cursor.
this is similar to
Oh,
Codex,
Codex.
right? Is it's supposed to be it's agented, so it's
Yeah.
agentic. So the idea is that it can
Oh,
go
yeah.
away,
Yeah.
and if you give it like a strategy to fix some code or like remove bugs or whatever, it will go and
Yeah.
do that work for you. I think it's interesting. I'm interested to see like obviously Microsoft has a lot of customers that have high like security requirements. And I think that that's been the benefit of Copilot, right? Is that a lot of organizations that have really high security requirements have been able to adopt Copilot or are adopting Copilot. So I wonder if this will translate into that
Yeah.
developer environment as well. will it actually be useful, and will it be credited with a similar, security bar?
Side note, Codex is still proprietary and not open source. So it's just the GitHub Copilot stuff.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't talking about
So
like
the
it
VS
being
Code
open source. I was
extension.
talking about the functionality of what it does. Yeah,
Okay,
I was not sure. I actually
in general.
completely missed that. Yeah, no, I guess it's supposed to be. Yeah, we need you to try this out, Matt. We need you to go and use some agents to build some things, and let's see how it goes. Should we do that as an experiment for an episode? Let's let's just come up with some design principles and tell it what to build and see what happens. I think let's create another AWS account for this though.
Vibe agentic dev.
No,
Yeah,
no,
that's right.
don't do that.
Not mix
Don't
it
do
up
that.
with our other stuff. It's definitely not a good idea. The last item is it's from a few weeks back. Anthropic introduced integrations to their online Claude service. So integrations, I think beginning of May it was. And basically what that does, it was like integrations via the website. So this is the first time that they've done actual integrations with other services. And the integrations are with Jira, Confluence, Zapier, which is like itself integrates and automates a bunch of other SaaS services, Cloudflare, PayPal, the list goes on. And basically what this is like a managed MCP service. So Model Context Protocol is like the big thing, the standard that Anthropic came up with late last year, November, sort of time frame around reInvent. That's how I remember the time frame. And that allows, basically, you configure very simplistically, you configure your agents on the client with an endpoint that knows how to do something. It might know how to talk to an API or get some data from somewhere. And it gives you information to feed into the prompt when you're, asking the LLM something. So it allows the LLM to be a bit more current and with current information to resolve the query, because obviously LLMs have a fixed cutoff point. A lot of them were last year. Claude itself, the new Claude 4 has a cutoff of it's either January 2025 or March 2025. The doco
So
says
annoying that you can't like
March
chat GPT
2025,
about stuff that's going right now.
So that exactly, and they're kind of getting around that a little bit by having integrated search, which is effectively an MCP behind the scenes. So anyway, this is the first time that they've provided these integrations, and so that's been around for like a month now. And I think it's been pretty popular. So and that's kind of the genesis of this episode, because I was going to quickly talk about the MCP and why people should sort of be taking notice of it and like the internet from the early inception is all about APIs, and APIs. Amazon were one of the first early people with APIs for their bookstore, and a whole APIs and web browsing. Web browsing itself is basically all powered by APIs at the back end. So that's how how you get your information, and you have for like the last 25 years probably, even 30 years almost. So MCPs are a way of bringing that info. It's like describing your data and your data source in a way that an LLM can actually consume it.
Using with the integrations is kind of an interesting one, because if you look at those popular services, they're all like kind of quite developer focused. So it's like, how do we get developers to have the confidence in the MCP, which is very like Amazon style in terms of strategy, right? To get to the developers in order to get the thing done. So I think that's an interesting strategy. But
yeah, that's true.
Obviously, that brings us to MCP and what you've been working on.
That's right, exactly.
So I think one of the main challenges that a lot of organizations are having with AI at the moment is that they've kind of got like a lot of them are using LLMs, right? They're using LLMs to increase efficiency. How do we analyze data? And but obviously, I think
Yep.
one of the things that's coming out of that, or like that's kind of moving around in the background or creating problems, challenges in the background, is how do we meet LLMs and our own data, right? Because if we're using models within our own organization, we want to be able to
Yep.
integrate our own data so that we can. Well, if you have LLMs, you'll probably see an increase in your efficiency over a period of time. But if you can then integrate LLMs with your own data, that's just taking your capability to another level, right?
Yep. Yeah, so I guess the biggest issue, obviously, with LLMs, and it has been, is hallucinations, right? And because it doesn't know, like LLMs are not good at saying when they don't know something. They'll always know it. It might not be right, but they'll know something that may or may not be right. So it's about how do we help it to get to the right answer. And up until last year, or up until MCPs became a thing, you either really only had two options. You had to fine tune the model on your data, which sometimes can be time consuming and costly, or you use RAG. RAG is a fancy term
Retrieval
for, it stands for Retrieval
almost.
Augmented Generation. So basically it means you have you're very close. You basically have a bunch of data. It could be some documents. It could be, PDFs, Excel, pretty much anything. SharePoint, you can point it at SharePoint, and this thing can index it and stores all the chunks somewhere. And then when you put the query, it can do a search based on what the user's querying for relevant information, gets the data, sends it to the LLM. The LLM can then answer with fairly high degree of accuracy and not make less chance of it making things up to answer the user's question. It's kind of like a fancy search, but a little bit smarter in that it can summarize things and all that sort of stuff. So up until last year, there was only really two options. But now with MCP, you have a third option, and I think it's probably even going to potentially replace RAG, because MCP is basically about describing APIs so an LLM can query it. APIs can be very, very complex to query, and LLMs can get confused if they go straight to the API. So MCP's, two or three endpoints which are well described. Like with LLMs, you have to describe everything very carefully and give it the parameters. And then an example is a web search. So there's plenty of MCPs that can do web searches. Like Perplexity is a LLM friendly web search tool, and you can just give it a query, and then you send that to the API of Perplexity, and it'll come back with the response. Plus, Perplexity also indexes, gives you the origin websites of the data as references. So so that sort of thing is where that way you can get current information from LLMs, because obviously LLMs have the
And I
cutoffs,
feel
so they
like
don't
this
know what's
brings
happening,
a
at
whole
the
other
moment.
level of
And
auditability
that's,
to AI, because I think that's a challenge that a lot of
yeah,
organizations are grappling with at the moment, right? It's like, how do I make sure? And an example of that I see as being like HR data, for example. Like if I have certain roles
yeah,
and permissions in place, I can make sure that certain data is only accessible to certain people within my organization, which is really important, right? As opposed to like
yeah,
either leaking, like uncontrolled release of data, or like actually we're not quite sure how we came up with this conclusion, which I think is a challenge that a lot of organizations are facing. You're right, we're actually not sure how AI came to this conclusion. But obviously, from a like C-suite perspective, if you're querying financial data but it's missing the last 6 months, you just created a liability, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Because you don't
or
have the full
if you don't have the
picture.
latest regulatory requirements, again, you just created a liability. So MCP just brings that whole context, the ability to inject context into what we're doing with AI in a more auditable, structured
Yep.
way.
Yep. Actually, the other way to deal with the problem was longer context windows, which is basically longer chats. So your chats, you can inject context into the chat, and it could use that as background as well. But the problem with that is that if you give an LLM too much information, it can get lost and confused as well, even though they're getting better at that. And the context, like Gemini, I think is like 1 million or tokens or something ridiculous. So contexts are getting a lot longer than they were like 2 years ago. But even so, having a choice of different options plus MCP is hugely beneficial, just to make queries and make LLMs much more
Yeah, I
useful.
feel like
I mean, they've come a long way from just predicting the next word, or
having like tons of context is just the same as having the LLM on its own, right? Because it's just like, well, I mean, it's just a ton of unstructured data, right? It's like returning back to the same problem that we've just created.
Yeah, I mean, there are those people that think that having huge context windows is all you need, but I don't think that's necessarily. It does help in some respects, but yeah, it's always better to reduce the context of what's important to answer the question effectively. And sometimes you do need lots of context, but other times an MCP calling off an API or.
And I feel like as well as all of that technical capability, there's also like a human trust element here, and any organization with a long legacy is going to be seeing that as they try to introduce new technology, right? It's like, well, they will probably have a significant cohort of people that don't really engage with the technology because of that trustability. So if you can build systems that are more auditable and explainable, that's going to naturally increase your adoption, right?
Yeah, and MCPs are basically a way of standardizing. There's been function calling and tool use and stuff for the last year or so as well, but it's just about standardizing that. Effectively, an MCP is a fancy tool. It's just basically exposes a bunch of tools the LM can just call, and the good thing is you can use them I mean, there's a lot of security issues which will get solved over time, but the way you call it might be via front end, but they also might be via agents. So having a standard way to do this is a very good thing because it enables reuse, and fast forward 12 months and organizations will probably have not only APIs which developers can consume, but there'll be MCPs that regular people can consume via plain, querying within the enterprise. Imagine having all your enterprise, things that you need to share across the organization, easy chat interface, your Teams interface or whatever to query, as you said, things like, HR policies, company policies, specific data from databases that needs to be shared across the organization. But obviously you can put controls on that as well to make sure that they're only talking to things. And that's one of the security things, is you've got to make sure the person querying the data has access to the data. And that was a problem with RAG as well, because Bedrock put in, controls around that with their managed RAG knowledge base service when they released that over probably a year and a half ago now.
I just had a thought. Well,
Yep.
if you have, say, for instance, some sort of LLM, say in your organization you have some sort of LLM that supports people with productivity, like Copilot or the OpenAI for enterprise.
Yep.
You have something like that. Then you have, say, for instance, you want to use that to like call a bunch of APIs using MCP. So say, for instance, and going back to the example that I gave before, say you've got HR data, and you've got different roles and permissions in your organization. So maybe if I go to say I'm like a, low-level pleb, I'm like, hey, Copilot, tell me how much this person earns. It goes, no, I'm not going to tell you that. You don't have permissions. And then it flags to please fire this person. And then you might have the line manager might go to that person's, can you tell me when this person has leave coming up? Yeah, okay. They're going to Spain in June. They'll be gone for a week. Okay, cool. And then you might also have like,
Yep.
you know, people that look at pay. Maybe they like people that help managers to normalize pay. Then you might also have like an executive that wants to know, like, you know, what's the pay range of people in this type of roles. And they obviously don't need like personally identifiable information, right? Like the CEO doesn't need personally identifiable information. So he just gets an aggregated view.
Yep.
So if you have, say, for instance, something like that, what I'm wondering is, how does your operating model enable that? So, like, obviously you've got Copilot, and that's probably like a product, just like a product. Like you've got a team of people that look after that product. They make sure that it's effective. They make sure that you're realizing benefits from it. They look after the instance. You know, they make sure that it's embedded in the M365 eco, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
My whole thing just edit point. Hang on a second. What I'm trying to think is like, how do you do a product operating model around that? My whole bloody desktop has shit.
Well, it's like any product.
Everything's just
Hasn't?
frozen. So I was just thinking, where would the accountability for owning the MCP sit? And I guess it would sit within that Copilot functionality, right? And they potentially own, like, depending on how much integration they have with the rest of the organization, whether it's like Workday, SAP, whatever, right? They kind of manage all of those MCPs and prioritizing them accordingly. And then they have compliance. Am I making a degree of sense?
Well, yeah. And so I think it's no different to any other product in the organization, because there might be different parts of the organization that expose different parts of the data or whatever, and they'll own exposing that. Like today, if someone owns a piece of data around with APIs, they own that. This would be no different. They'd own they'd expose it via APIs and also via an MCP. But there'd also be probably a central team that has a chat platform which integrates with all these MCPs. So that's probably how that would work. But obviously we're in early days.
Because it could be huge.
No one's doing it
could
yet
be like
because
this
the
massive,
security
it could be
is
this
not quite up to
massive web
scratch.
of stuff, right?
Exactly. And that, well, yeah. Yeah, but it is exactly like how APIs work in enterprise today.
And they
There
offer
are
that as a
teams
product
that
to the rest of the
have API
organization, and
platforms
they
that
have
they manage.
certain permissions. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it'll be sub products, you know. Yeah. And you pass through your permissions just like any other API. Like up until a month ago, there was no authorization mechanism on MCPs, which is a bit of an issue. And they're only, you know, that standard is still sort of in flux. So, but in the next few weeks, that'll settle, and over time, and fast forward 6 months, and it might be, you know, suitable for enterprise. But I think enterprise should be kind of experimenting now, maybe
Yeah.
in the
I love
developer
that.
platforms, because MCPs where they're most valuable at the moment is around making sure developers have the latest information on, you know, libraries and frameworks that they use, because the LLMs are extremely bad at knowing what the latest versions and how they work. And, you know, when you go from version, you know, 6 to 7, sometimes the whole APIs change, and the LLM might not know about version 7 of, you know, insert your framework here. So that's where MCPs are useful, because you can just point it at, you know, an MCP for, you know, AWS documentation, or one for Azure documentation, or one for React, the latest React documentation. So that's, and I'm doing one for security compliance frameworks. Just because, well, the LLM kind of knows about the framework, but I don't want it to kind of know and make stuff up, because if I say which, you know, for this particular control, what is it? I can't guarantee without actually, you know, I don't know for sure that it's going to give me the right answer. So I need, for those sorts of important things, you need to point them at, you know, some sort of API, and this is a way to enable that. So I think it's something that organisations need to experiment with, because in 6 months, fast forward 12 months, everyone will be asking for it for, you know, internal things. So the standards would have settled down the way you operate these sort of things in production.
Do you think, Matt, that
standardized
it's
to an extent,
what
hopefully.
about legacy systems? Do you think that it's well? Do you think that it's there? Like there's
Good for
there's
that too.
like are they is it is there enough interoperability to enable like legacy databases? Like because I think that's
Well,
one kind of frequent problem a lot of organizations face, right? Is how do we use the data we have, and a lot of it's locked up in legacy systems.
if there's an API, then you can do it. If there's not, that's probably okay too, as long as there's a way to export the data. If it's a legacy system that's not even being updated anymore,
Could you like
that's probably
ETL
fine
into
too.
an MCP?
You can export the data.
Did I just ask you a really difficult question? No.
Oh, no, probably not. Oh, you could probably ask the
Yeah.
MCP to do an ETL because, but I don't know how much use that would be. I'm sure someone's going to do it because MCP is not just about retrieving information, by the way. They can be used by agentic systems to go in, you might get an alert on your AWS account for something that's broken. Your agent using MCPs and APIs can go into your AWS account and diagnose that problem and fix the problem if you give it the right access. Now, I don't know if I'd want to give it administrator access, but you might have, it's like any developer, you don't want to give the developer full enterprise access, full administrator access to everything. You need to give them the rights to what they need. So maybe you'll have agents with certain scopes of things that they can fix with certain permissions. And I think, did I read something? I think there was like SREs, agentic SREs. Yeah, let me look it up. I think Microsoft. Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the next things. Oh, yeah, that's it. Microsoft. I knew at their developer conference last week. SRE agent was introduced, which does exactly what I just said, where it responds to incidents and potentially fixing problems. So it's about, again, just like LLMs have been helpful for developers to build stuff, it'll help with operational areas. And that's a really interesting area. People say that, LLMs are, initially they said, they're toys and playthings, but I think they're becoming much more.
Matt, you know what I think we need to do? I think we need to create a new brand.
Systems. Yep.
Just no. This is for public consumption. Create a new brand, right?
Oh, okay.
Tell AI to start a business, to start a product, creating a product, right? Let's just let agents run wild in like an AWS. And we'll just give it certain parameters, right? Like we don't want to spend millions of dollars on AWS. Let's deploy some agents. Let's get them building. Let's use the virtual SRE, like all these different things. Let's just create a new brand and let's just update everyone every day. How is it going? What is it doing? What has it built? Exactly. What has it built? Tell us what it has built. I legitimately think we should do this as an experiment and just keep a live blog going, this is what it's doing today.
Actually,
could we just register another company? Can we just register, or we just register another trading as?
Yeah,
I think that's
interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm thinking as well. It's like, how do we? I think we should do that, and we just tell everybody how it's doing every day. What is it up to? What is it saying? What is it reporting back? What is in the code? Like, I would be fascinated. That's a good idea, isn't it? That's actually a pretty good idea.
Yes, very, very interesting. It is. It is.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like that could be like topical. We might have to decide some guardrails. We have to decide some guardrails.
Yeah, agents are being very. Yeah. I mean, it's the year we knew it was going to be the year of agents, and it's definitely becoming the year of agents. So yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we should edit that out so we don't give that idea away.
Let's have a think about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so because someone has to do it.
No, I'll edit that out.
All right, so I think we're done. So, what are the key takeaways?
Let's quickly close within
Key
the next minute
takeaways.
because otherwise, why is MCP important? Well, it adds a degree of trust, transparency, and explainability into your AI,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yes.
And helps your LLMs gives LLMs context-aware information relatively cheaply, and MCPs are easy to develop. You can actually use an agent to
Potentially
LLM to build your
really
MCP.
game changing for
So
regular
it's not that hard.
organizations.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can keep your data local. You don't have to put it anywhere, and your MCP just has to have access to your network, and you don't have to give the LLM, all your data. Obviously, you give it a little bit so I can summarize it, but you keep ownership of it. So yeah, so watch this space. Definitely, I reckon everyone should be, keeping up to date on this stuff because it's going to be one of those, just like APIs of the web. MCPs will be, just as big. And that's the end of the
Everyone,
episode.
don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.
Week.
Tell us what you want to hear next because we have so much going on at any point in time.
Yes,
Trying to
we
figure
need
out what the
feedback.
next episode is just a nightmare. So tell us your ideas. We need them.
Yep.
Subscribe to newsletter.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening in, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Ciao. Bye.